minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Can we open our public session first? And I think we've got one speaker, and I think that's Richard. Do you want to speak to us?
I'll do my best.
Yeah. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll stay seated then, as we're all seated. I wish to speak very briefly on a planning appeal. First of all, I'm going to say I'm so gratified to see that you've got a full council now. I appreciate the efforts that have gone in to make a full council, and it's great to see that the village is fully represented. And, I know in the past it's got a little bit thin at times, but it's great to see you all. Thank you. The planning application is the one for Middle Street Glamping, which was submitted last year, and it's 2107 treble 9. Sorry, quadruple 9. First, I'd like to say, in view of the fact that the council is new, it's a new council, and there are many new councillors, I fully appreciate that perhaps this planning application, which was placed last year, wouldn't be totally familiar with you. There may be some aspects of it that you may have heard about and you've hopefully read about, but I wouldn't expect you to read all the objection letters that were sent in last year. There's 50 odd of them, and I think it would have taken most of the day to actually read through them, so I appreciate you can't have taken all that information and all the photos that were associated with them. But that number of objections I thought was very significant. It's about 50, 4 of which were in support. Interestingly, and I'm going to make this point, those four in support were not truly valid because they did not include a postal address or a name. They were sent by email. It makes me personally suspicious as to what they're about, but certainly there were no written, formal, named supporters. They were all emailed from some ethereal time. Now the objections, I know from talking to the villagers, and I live in Middle Street, and with my wife Liz, we've lived there for 25 years, we're very familiar with it, and we know how it's used, and it's used extensively by people in the village for very many reasons. And the feelings that are held by those people that visit the street are very strong. And I can remember last year even making the statement that there were people losing their sleep because they felt that if they didn't have the proper and free use of Middle Street, they would feel very anxious and their life would be different. To get to the application itself, I can only express what I put in my own letters, that it seems to have very, very little little or no merits, but I think it's got many reasons that it would be worth objecting to. If I'm going to stick on one particular issue, and that is the use of Middle Street itself, which you may or may not know, some may know and some may not, is a single lane that can only pass with one vehicle at a time, with little or no passing places and virtually no verges. There's a verge on one side, which is very limited, and a brambly hedge on the other. So you can either get prickles or jump in the reed, whichever way you fancy. So it's not that easy when you're walking up and down Brent Street in any event. If a tractor comes by or a car comes by, you have to be very, very careful. And I think I want to just put a point out right now that I took a photo just the other day because the applicant suggested there was a 3-foot verge, a metre wide verge, all the way, perhaps you can pass that round. That's near the site, and you can see actually there's no verge there whatsoever. Never mind there being a metre verge, there is nothing there at all. So it's just, the access is therefore argued as being very unsuitable. It's virtually traffic free. Actually the applicant defines it as being traffic free in his last appeal. So there's a bit of an irony there. He feels it's traffic free and therefore it is usable by the sort of people that use it. And again, I've taken a few photos from the original application, which might be familiar to some but not familiar to others, that just shows both the access points and the sort of usage that it takes. So can I pass those around? Thanks very much.
Richard, can you just, sorry to butt in, but can you just ascertain from members of the council that they are aware of where this application actually is in Middle Street? Are you aware that as you go down Middle Street, it is on, as you go towards the railway, it is on the right-hand side, immediately adjacent to the railway and just before you go over the bridge? That's the area we're talking about, to the right-hand side. It's a bit of a disused area at this moment in time. But sorry, Richard.
Well, no, thank you for the clarification, because everybody may not be familiar with the application. Although it's been well publicised, I'm pleased to say, in many areas. So, as perhaps you can judge from some of the photos there, it's very widely used by walkers, people walking their dogs, horse riders, obviously farm vehicles, occasionally for haymaking, cyclists, invalid carriages, mothers with babies. So it's a very quiet, unused lane for traffic. So therefore, to suggest that it can be used for cars being driven up towards the bridge for the glamping site seems way out of its normal use, and therefore it would spoil its use. And the other issue to do with exiting Middle Street, and those of you who may have tried to do it may have found that it's not the easiest junction, to say the least. Coming out of Middle Street onto Burton Row, looking to the right is difficult. There's a high hedge, which isn't anybody's fault, it's a high hedge. And you can't see properly until you stick your nose out of it, and then you have to look very carefully left and right. Now, it is true that the appellant has said there have been, as far as I know, no actual accidents there. But that's, of course, the reason that the few locals who use the lane and occasionally come out of the lane know it's a very dangerous point and are very, very careful. If you had people coming out of that lane who weren't familiar with it, I would suggest it would become hazardous and probably we would have an accident fairly quickly. Again, yes, I think one of the photos shows roughly, I haven't gone into great depth, that access point is really very difficult. So really, in essence, I'm trying to say to the council, I'd like you to view it very carefully, and I would urge you to make a strong objection, as you have done in the past. I will have one or two more comments if I don't drone on too long for you, because the applicant has made some assertions which I think need to be disputed, because you may view them and you may take them as the truth. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to contest that point. Let's look at something for you. Oh, by the way, Bob may know this, or may not. I went onto the SDC site only 2 hours ago, and there is now a delegated report dated today that was presumably was the report that the planning officers put to the council when the refusal was made. That delegated report, I've got a copy of it here. If it needed to be, if anybody would like to look through it, perhaps the objections that I'm going to perhaps talk about rather than no. I think it would be more useful in time-wise for me to hand it on to you. I've highlighted the points that I will contest and say I do not believe they are actually true statements that the applicant has made. So if I could pass that in, and anybody would like to look through it, it may be useful to make a judgment on you think whether those statements are valid or not. Perhaps the other point I would make, and this is perhaps not quite planning, there's a photo that actually supplements that stuff where I'm saying a clear view of the lane can be taken from his property. You can see that isn't true, and there's the evidence. So wrap up by saying there's an attitude here which I'm just going to spell out of my own feelings. That the appellant seems to have made a great deal of issue of insulting everybody involved, including the parish council, the planning officers, and there are many statements by the planning officers calling them, it could even be on the LPA has taken a ridiculously long time. Now, I would dispute that. I know, and you look on the planning site and it shows he didn't put his final comments in until February, and then the SDC made their decision in March. Is that a long time? I don't believe so. So I think it's unfair to make those comments about the council when they didn't actually, when he hadn't actually complied with the requirements. And his statement is the refusal has been given a ridiculously long time and it took them to consider the case is pathetic. So you're all pathetic, you fucking lads. Another one he came up with, the planning officers failed to read or actually comprehend the plan we had submitted, and when quizzed, she seemed very vague about it. Now, again, that to me is not trying to get somebody on your side. Let's put it like that. Again, there were some more insults in having incredible difficulties in getting her to respond to emails and telephone messages. I don't believe that to be the case, and I think that could be disputed because of evidence that that wasn't the case. The statement, in his statement again, for the appeal, this is one area where the applicants really wondered what the planning officer was thinking. Well, quite insulting, once again. So, it seems to be something of a theme here, that everybody in the world is stupid. There is a further statement on the LinkedIn site that I've seen where he describes us objectors as idiots and NIMBYs. I can't remember if it's and or, actually I can't remember, but it's on the forum. We're idiots or NIMBYs. Again, I don't feel that is actually appropriate, and I don't feel it actually helps his case. That's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions of Richard at all? Yes.
Can I ask a question, Richard? After you said you lived down there for 25 years,
Yeah.
one of your pictures, just wanted to ask a question on your pictures really. There are swans, baby swans, which I forget the name of, cygnus, my apologies, swans and cygnus down there. Yeah. Have they been there pretty much every year?
Oh,
yes.
Regular? Normally two lots.
Okay.
Up to 8 cygnus some years.
Yeah.
8. Yes.
And I'm guessing they traverse the road up and down and...
Well, he feeds them.
It's only because he feeds, they're always out.
So they're across the road.
In fact, I'll make a point on that one.
It's only
They
because
do indeed feed them,
Yep.
which I'm all in favour of. The only problem is there is then a racket infestation around where he feeds them. And we've seen them, I think we've probably all seen them, large rats around the place.
But it's a regular yearly thing with the swans returning to that area and
Yes, there have been one or two incidents where we've actually lost a swan, but Mrs. Swan tends to go over to the wetlands and bring more back. Which is always very handy.
She's a wise woman.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been there that long. There's a caravan site there previously, is that correct?
Again, there's lots of points I could make, so I'm going to make that one. And I used to know the lady, Josie Love, who used to live in the Middle Street Farm, which is just over the bridge, and there's a lake and a pond next to it. And I got to know quite well. She died in 2017, and I got to know really what happened in the field beyond the farm, which had actually been labelled up as a caravan club campsite. And I've talked to her, and I've since talked to her son about whether it was really viable, because in the time that we've lived there, we've not seen probably more than one caravan ever there, and that was more than 20 years ago. And I just wanted to confirm that when I spoke to the family, and they confirmed. In fact, the last 2 or 3 caravans she ever had there, which was probably back in the 90s, were friends rather than paying guests. So it's true to say there was a campsite there, but it was very limited, and it was a long time ago.
if I could just add to that, we came to that campsite in the 70s. This is how we came to live here, and we've been here over 40 years. The campsite is a privately owned, certificated location, and the caravan club limit 5 strictly, 5 outlets, and that's it. It's now been closed for a long time, not longer than, yeah.
Isn't our site, it's the field behind. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Richard. I mean, from my own point of view, there are other considerations to take into i.e. the accommodation or the materials he's going to use to provide the accommodation on the site was totally inadequate. There's no power, there's no foul water details, it's complete. So
yeah, I've only just touched on the actual street itself, and I thought that's the key issue, but there are many other issues which are associated with, in fact, the delegated report gives a fair bit of detail on. Did I pass that one out? Anyway, yeah.
We'll cover those in our conversation, I'm sure. Thanks, Richard. No one else wishes to address us? No? Okay, then we'll open our formal meeting now. Welcome everyone to. It's quite unusual to have an August meeting, and we've got quite a lot of business, so let's crack on. Apologies, please.
Well, you'll notice there's only 10 members because we have a vacancy, and Nigel Summers has retired, resigned, stepped down, whichever way you want to put it. He's no longer with us, so we've got a vacancy on the parish council now. That's the reason why we've only got 10 people here tonight. So, of course, he sends his apologies because he's no longer a councillor. Okay.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Bob?
Can I do a normal planning declaration on all the active planning applications in front of Sedgewell? That doesn't apply to the one that's been talked about, because that's moved beyond Sedgewell. And also, I guess, as a shareholder in the community shop, I'm personally interested for that.
Yeah, I suppose I should declare share ownership on the shop. But we can call you back, can't we, for this, the appeal?
Okay, declaration, Kingfisher House, Burton Road.
Thank you, Jay. David?
I'm in that Ham Farm.
Okay, thank you.
Same for me, planning at Ham Farm.
Okay.
Colin, could I just butt in terms of the declarations, we will need to know whether they're personal, prejudicial, and a rough idea of why there is an interest.
Okay.
Yours will be a pecuniary interest, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're out with me.
Yeah, right.
Mine would be pecuniary.
You're a pecuniary?
Whatever that means,
We can do declarations.
Yeah, we can do it.
Afterwards, can't we?
Okay. Yeah.
What they are and why you do
Yeah,
it.
that's
Yeah.
fine. But as long as we know that there is a declaration. Okay.
Okay, so you can stay then up until the particular item that concerns you, and then you'll have to remove. So we're going to planning, Bob. Yeah, you're off.
Yeah. For a little while.
Sarah, just in case you're not aware, I've got the planning applications on the screen actually, so that might just help you try and identify what the various plans are. You just have to bear with me a minute.
Are you happy to lead us, Sarah? Yeah, on these planning, and then we'll butt in and try and help. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so we've got 009 first, haven't we, I think? This is a superseded application, isn't it? Superseded from the previous one. Water allocation plan, isn't it? That's where it is. 140 Brent Street.
You've already looked at this from the last meeting. There have been some revised plans which Sarah will probably go through, but crack on, Sarah.
So I looked at the application that's been amended, this is since it went in last month, It just seems that the main alteration is to do with the roof materials.
Yeah. It's the height.
At the height of the, I didn't actually see that, but I saw that that was objected to. And I hadn't
Yeah,
actually seen where that was.
The height has been reduced.
I know it's been reduced,
Yeah.
but I saw that because that was an objection from an interested party as opposed to seeing it in the actual application.
Yeah.
So, but I think that seems to be within the amendment I saw. And there's been one objection subsequent to that application. And they've recommended, or they've welcomed the first step that this is something that supports some of the concerns that have been raised previously.
Do you want me to sort of
Yeah, sorry, I didn't
fill in a bit? Okay. Have you got another? Have you got existing at all? If you remember, this building is an old cottage, and it has a special feature called a cat slide roof, okay, which is particular to Brent Knoll. It's here. This is it. And it's got some dormers. So this wall overlooks the next door property, which is Peter Osborne's property, just a matter of interest. And it was initially stated that it was a distinctive feature, and it would be lost. This unique feature would be lost if we allowed this application, because essentially they're going to take those out and straighten out the roof with roof lights, and also, and if you look, can we have the last slide now? So instead of that feature, yeah, you would no. That's, you want the other side. You want the
That one.
do that one.
Go on the one you're on and go down.
Yeah.
This one here.
Up.
Up.
That one?
Yeah. Go down.
No, we did that one.
Go down the page.
It's proposed elevations.
Oh, yeah, scroll down, yeah. Scroll down.
Follow that one. We'll get them, yeah, we'll go through them all.
Could be a long night. No.
No,
You had it originally.
The one I had first of all was that one.
It's not that, it's two down.
That was the one I had first on the screen.
Press the down
I
arrow.
think it's this one, yeah.
It was down
No,
there.
Proposed, yeah, not superseded.
Come on, come and tell us. We need some technical skills here.
Down two.
Down two, yeah. Or three even.
Oh, you see, you're scrolling down.
Right, that's it.
Scroll down, yeah. We need some technical skills.
So instead of the cat slide roof, it's removed. Two windows will be overlooking, and that will be overlooking Peter's. So you lose that distinctive feature of the cat slide roof, and you've got overlooking onto the next property. The other complaints that have been, i.e. raising the eaves will have a detrimental impact upon the adjoining properties. I'm going to make sure I've got the other complaints or suggestions are as that in terms of the design, the scheme has a substantial enlargement that erodes the character of the existing property and has a detrimental impact on the street scene and adjoining properties. The other one is inappropriate roofing materials. They're saying, why use concrete tiles when you can use a far more user-friendly and appropriate tile. Loss of light and overshadowing on the existing neighbouring property, and a discrepancy between description of roofing materials on the planning application form and heritage statement. So those are still, if you like, complaints or concerns about this particular planning application. Originally, what decision did we make originally?
We declined.
Yeah, I think we refused this.
On the foregrounds
On
of
the
design,
Yeah.
the inappropriate use of materials, the overshadowing, the discrepancy on the plans.
Okay, so what do councillors feel about that?
Not a lot's changed.
No, only the elevation has changed. Yes, Melina?
In terms of the roofing material, if they were to be just putting a new roof on rather than altering the structure, would they be able to just use concrete roof tiles without anybody having a say in it? Because you don't need planning permission to re-roof unless it's a listed building, do you?
Probably not, but it's what the objection is on the design. The concrete roof tiles will not suit the building. That's what we're objecting to, or we did object to. But yes, you're quite right. But it's inappropriate. What do councillors feel?
Can I just say, there was a letter that stated by the conservation officer that spray tiles should be used, and that's one of the alterations to the roof materials that has been used, but I think it was not significant. Changes are not significant in maybe to what we've said previously. But
There was.
I think actually this revised planning application must have been in the pipeline when we discussed it last time, because in fact the revision came through the following morning after we discussed it at the last planning meeting. So I suspect it was already on the blocks before we ever got to the meeting last time. It's just that it never made its way to us, unfortunately.
Mark Lidster, the Conservation and Regeneration Officer for SDC, has said, I would encourage the applicant to choose a suitable clay tile for material for the roof. The modern interlocking options available are likely to affect the character of the built environment negatively. Therefore, selecting a tile that matches the existing roof cover of the unaltered building is my advice. So in other words, he's saying, can you choose a tile that is in selection? And that's from the conservation officer of SDC. So,
I think, if I may, just
yeah,
speak,
sure.
two things that I read through it earlier today. I think I would like to just add that I think the loss of light and the loss of privacy, looking at the designs in front of us here, would be two considerations, certainly for myself.
Yes. Thank you. Jane, any comments?
no, I would agree. No,
Tracy?
I think it's changing the character too much. It's a cottage at the moment, and it will look like a new build or something when it's done later.
Okay. Well, it seems that we once again want to reject this, principally on the grounds that we've already stated, i.e. design, materials, loss of privacy, overshadowing. Those are the principal reasons. Would you accept those?
Yes.
Yeah. So, shall I propose it then that we reject this application on those three grounds: design, inappropriate materials, and overlooking, loss of privacy, etc. All those in favour? Okay, thank you.
Was your hand up, Maria?
No, it wasn't actually.
So are you objecting, or you to that proposal, or are you abstaining? Are you abstaining?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, just so we get it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
0012 111 Brent Street. Yes.
We've had some new members of the public come in. Shall we suspend? If anybody wants to say anything, anybody wants to address the council?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're on 0012 now, which is 111 Brent Street. This has been before us some time ago. Are you all aware what this application is about? Alina, do you want to start us off and tell us what it's about? Have you looked at the plans?
Oh, I have looked at the plans, yeah. It's, from what I understand, it's removing the, looks like an extension to the side, to the left-hand side of the property as you look at it from the front, creating vehicular access into the back, and then building 2 new houses in the back garden.
Yeah, can we move that up? Yeah. This house is opposite the village hall or wherever cream house existing at the moment, and as Melina has indicated, part of it will be knocked down to allow vehicle access to build 2 bungalows in the garden. Sarah, do you want to add anything now to that?
I'm just looking to see.
We've already got plans for similar, haven't we?
Are they bungalows?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, they're not.
They're 2-story houses.
They're 2-story buildings, sorry.
Yeah.
They're huge.
They are huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
Well, it does say it's proportionate, but they could be large.
They're full.
I think they point to the neighbours, don't they, and say, well, they've done it, so.
They are 4-bedroom properties, and you can see that they're giving the game away. That they've got 3 car parks, the 3 cars parked there, 2 here, 1 there, a big garage here, 3 cars there. Immediately, this place has become overbuilt. As far as I'm concerned, I see it's just an overdevelopment.
It's almost a new housing estate, isn't it?
I mean, the car parking spaces moved from 3 to 10 from the existing. There's cycling, for bikes as well, cycling spaces, and that's moved from 3 to 9. So that seems a significant increase.
Yeah, I think it also, of course, impacts on these 2 smaller little cottages here, with the driveway to and fro, with the cars passing to and fro. You've got exit onto Brent Street from this site, but are we comfortable that we're going to build 2 houses in somebody's garden?
It's also, I know they've put parking spaces there, but in reality, those people aren't going to be parking there if they just pop back for an hour. They're going to be parking out on the street, and that's a lot of cars that are going to be trying to park on a street that already gets incredibly busy at certain times of the day.
I think the concerns that I saw was there's a high archaeological impact potentially.
Hi.
It's not archaeological. There's an issue from the archaeological officer that remains outstanding. The flood risk, the environmental agency have objected. So it currently doesn't meet the second part of the flood risk exception test. and the whole tree survey is required as well due to the impact, so there's still some outstanding issues.
Principally, my own feeling, and I don't know about everybody else, I just feel it is an overdevelopment, complete overdevelopment. And we can't say, well, just because somebody else has built one house in their garden,
It's a free fall for everybody else.
it's a free fall for everybody. We can't say that. There's a precedent set, and we can't say that. But it's whether you accept two properties in the garden. It just seems an complete 2-storey properties in your garden is an overdevelopment.
Another concern with regards to the vehicles is if they did all choose to use the parking that is provided, that is potentially an awful lot of cars coming out across the pavement. So,
Well, you've got noise.
I mean,
Sorry?
It's very narrow, so you don't have an issue.
It is. Yes.
Cars
Yes.
coming in,
Yes.
going on past,
Could do.
because they wouldn't be able
Yes.
to pass with loads.
So,
Can I ask what the decision was? I couldn't find it. You said it's come up before. So
yes, I think it got passed, didn't it? But
Yes,
there was a different scheme, though.
it was different.
Yeah, it was
is
a
that
different
just
scheme.
because they're demolishing something now to create the vehicle access?
They have that, people start,
Okay.
every
Okay.
application.
I think they've widened the access, haven't they, this time? I'm not sure where they get the extra width from, but they
I think it's because they're demolishing.
But there's something that's irrelevant because you're looking at this plan,
Yeah.
rather than what went before.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's over 3 years, isn't it? Since we looked at this one. Must be easy. So what's the conclusion on this, everyone?
I think we should object on overdevelopment.
Okay. Just on overdevelopment. I think that's a fair reason, to be honest with you. Overdevelopment and design probably, because they are
They are
two-storey.
huge.
They are two-storey properties.
Highways.
And possibly
And
for the
highways,
I
yes.
would suggest highways and flood risk, potential flood risk at the moment, so I think that remains outstanding.
Okay.
Then vehicle movement.
Yeah, highways. Yeah. So it sounds to me that your conclusions are overdevelopment, design is inappropriate for the area, vehicle access between the properties and the road and access onto the road, archaeological and what was that one?
Flood risk.
Flood risk. And potentially you've got maybe a lot of noise generation. The fact that you've got two 4-bedroom houses so close together in that immediate area. Those seem to be our objections. All those in favour?
I've noted those.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. 13, so Jane, you'll have to... Oh no, it's sorry, it's Ham Farm. Sorry. I'm trying to get rid of you, Jane.
I'm 70.
Sarah, do you want to kick us off on 12?
So this is an application for the erection of an agricultural yard cover to cover the yard area that was previously applied for and supported from the planners obtained. I think the information that's been provided, it's using the existing access way, so there's no new access way required for it. It's simply to cover the existing agricultural yard. The application talks about the sustainability, so some sort of rainwater harvesting potential here with regard to water coming off the roof, which is a grey fibre cement roof. Keeping it clean, I think that's sort of quite a significant point in the application. and allowing it then to be used for other purposes in the farm. So the rainwater is going to the storage tank and then used to wash down the parlour facilities, etc.
This is, if you like, a working building. It won't have any detrimental effect on anyone, any neighbour or the environment. It is just the development of a farm building to allow work to carry on.
And in support of the application, that it must be within a rural area, which it is. It conforms to that requirement. It helps existing building to become more efficient, and improves just in terms of the usage of the water property. Reduces the amount of dirty water runoff on the property.
It seems that this brings up no concerns whatsoever. I propose that we accept this application to allow the building to go on based on probably, should we just put no comment or no observation rather? Yeah, we could put it through, accepted with no observations.
So there's no observation?
Yes. Are you happy with that? Okay. Signify, please. Thank you. Well done. Okay. Right, Jane. No, not yet. Oh dear. Ahead of myself. Right.
We've got next to the house, I think. We've got the tree.
Weeping Willow.
Weeping
Chevrolet one set. Weeping Ash, sorry. Yes, Weeping Ash. Okay.
Come back in.
This is at Simon's Oak, isn't it? Which you know well.
But there's not a great deal of information.
There isn't a great deal of information on this one, except...
To fill one tree.
That's it.
It's very limited in terms of the plan. And there also was reference in this application to an arborologist report, but they didn't attach it,
Yeah.
which was disappointing because
Yes.
that would be very supportive of the application and one thing taken at face value. But the tree is meant to be diseased with ash fibre.
Yes.
And I assume this one take that at face value. It would have been good to have seen supporting evidence, which should be my concern.
No, I agree.
It's in the conservation area, obviously it's a TPO. And there was also some concern that it was going to be a danger to people in the area, as well as the fact that it's diseased, that it might fall and damage children and family.
They are proposing to plant a replacement tree.
Yeah.
Tracy, do you know the tree?
They're very sad with them because it's not a feature of the garden, but
Right.
it's disease, so it's coming down.
Right.
My recommendation would be it's
Okay, the recommendation is that we accept this. What we do, we pass it on the grounds of good arboreal practice, wouldn't we? Those are our words.
We do, but we also have been asked to put a caveat to that. Good arboreal practice, providing the case officer sees no other objections. Because what the case officer said to me was that we've done this a lot, we've obviously gone for a good arboreal practice, but we don't know, we're not tree experts. So how can we possibly say it's good arboreal practice if we don't know what is good practice? So we're saying it's good arboreal practice, subject to the case officer agreeing with that way of looking at it. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Or I'll word it in such a way that it sounds all right. I promise.
Everybody happy with that?
There's evidence of the report from the original expert that provided the report. Want to see that?
Sorry?
I suspect someone would want to see a copy of the report as part of the application.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sarah, 0015, Exeter House, Burton Road.
Right, this is quite a long one. This is conversion of an outbuilding to form annex accommodation and single-storey extension. This is accommodation required for 2 elderly neighbours. And it's to convert and repurpose and use some house within the curtilage of the existing property. There is no intention to split the property, and they have actually, as part of the application, considered 4 alternative proposals, which are fairly significantly put together with the strengths and weaknesses of each argument and seen from their view to come up with the best option. It looks like a fairly, have you got any pictures?
I have. I've got some pictures in. Yeah. I have. What have we got? Existing floor plan, elevation plan. What would you like?
Yeah, if you've got the photographs, I thought they were
some
fairly
photographs.
strong. in the,
Existing and proposed level plan, that would...
Existing and proposed level plan. Existing floor plan.
No, proposed level, no, this, try that one, no,
Oh, right.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So, essentially the house is, the existing house is a bit of a, like a horseshoe, isn't it, the existing one? And there is an outbuilding, so it's shaped. Sorry, that's the original shape there, okay? And what they're proposing is to demolish an extension that's on the side and, if you like, complete a bigger horseshoe, but at single-storey level to provide additional accommodation. It looks well designed.
I think it looks well designed. I think that it doesn't mean there's a new build. It's using the existing building.
Yeah.
It seems to be structurally sound. It's all on one level, so it supports the use for the elderly family. Its scale is appropriate. We're sympathetic to the main house, which I'd agree with. It shares the same access, which is, seems to be supported with the application, that they're not creating something new. And it seems that it does apply with local plans and requirements. It's an underutilised building, which of course is a positive part of the application, that they're repurposing it.
All those are pretty positive comments from Sarah. Are you happy that therefore we accept this application and support it on the grounds of property development, enhanced living accommodation, those sort of things?
Yes, I think that there's no objections at this stage. It would just be interesting to see whether there were any objections. So I think subject to that. I'd move
You
to
support it?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favour? Thank you. I'm done. Just that one.
Text house, that's
Yeah, it's changed.
I'll keep it quiet. Thanks, Jane.
yes.
All right, Sarah. Do you want to? Yeah. Get them. Right, we're on Exeter House now. Sorry, Kingfisher House. More than C. Kingfisher House we're talking about.
Okay, so this is an erection of a single-storey extension to the rear elevation of the property. It's for an oak mansard extension. There's no objection yet. It only went in on the 29th of July, so there aren't any objections yet from any party. the main tree. The application refers to there being no impact on landscaping, no impact on access.
Proposed plans, no. That's it, okay.
No impact on parking arrangements, and it can't be seen from any public area. It does seem to be in proportion. It's using David Salisbury, obviously who are local to the area, and they are high quality in terms of their build and reputation, which is one of the points that they've made supporting seeking to support their application. They believe that there's no impact on neighbours, which I would suggest is the case. There's fencing and hedging to the coverage of the property, so it would be obscure. It appear to be obscure. It's not listed, it's not in the conservation or AONB. It does appear to be in proportion to the whole development. It does appear to be consistent in terms of the materials that they're using with the rest of the building. It certainly doesn't stick out as being something different, again, from what's been put in the application. There's no impact on any historical or architectural features with the building. And it seems to be in line with planning policies, having gone through the planning policies that they've laid out. Flooding, I think they've done a flood assessment which seems to be pretty thorough. That came, I think, through David Salisbury. Floor levels are consistent throughout. The ground floor slabs are solid construction. Just in terms of flood policy, actually, it just has to be because it's in a high probability flooding area, it's considered to be a minor extension, but it does have to apply with standing advice, and they've considered all the standard advice in the application. They set out what that looks like and considered it, and the floor levels are consistent. Ground floor slabs are solid construction. There's a damp-proof membrane. And there is wiring coming from upstairs down. So it would certainly consider it, and that seems to be included with the standing advice required. So I would be minded to have no observations without clear to the planning process, no observations.
If you can just slide it up a bit so that you get the overall. Essentially, what's showing is the conservatory on the back of the house. So that's what's happening. Okay. So I would endorse what Sarah says. I think we should propose it and pass it through on the basis that we accept it with no observations. All those in favour?
So you're saying no observations?
Yeah. Thank you. Well done, Sarah. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well done. Do you want to get Bob back in, please?
Thank you for the technical support, we're relying on you now, do you think?
You've got one.
So just give an overview and then you can help us. Okay, the last item on planning is a planning appeal, which is 00009, which Richard has talked to you about. It's the proposed glamping site down the end of Middle Street, which we objected to originally, and I think can I hand it over to you, Bob, to explain where we are?
Yeah, just to and why I'm in the room. So basically, I have to declare an interest in case an application comes before the planning committee at Sedgemoor, which is why the live ones I end up leaving. So this one has been through that. Sedgemoor have made a decision. It was a delegated refusal, so it never actually came to us at committee, and that's the report that Richard has circulated. So at this point, the applicant has gone to appeal. So he's contesting the reasons for refusal. we have an option as a parish to either just let it roll through the appeal or to make our comments again. Now Sedgemoor, as part of the planning appeal process, will actually forward all the comments that everyone has sent in the first time round. My suggestion would be it is worth us making a comment on the grounds that you don't want to give the inspector the